Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio. Welcome everybody. Today we are going to be speaking with Dr. Wil Spencer, and we had Sonia from the Truther Girls scheduled, but she seems to be MIA, sadly. But we'll see what happens. We'll be bringing on Dr. Wil Spencer in just a few minutes. Today we're going to be talking a bit about our health. Basically, today we were watching and are playing right now the report about the Monsanto Protection Act, and there's some things that we really need to take care of, including ourselves, the way we eat, and the way we are taking care of ourselves. This week, there's been quite an uproar over this particular bill being signed. Some people are making excuses that it was a bill that was a part of the budget and they had to pass it. And I firmly disagree that anyone with integrity would never put their name on that. However, everyone has their own opinion, and that's why we do what we do, to share our thoughts and to share maybe some advice to help you in this upside-down world. It just seems to be getting a little stranger and stranger as we move into this, what I'd like to think, an age of consciousness and awareness. Anyway, in the meantime, I want to let you all know that Trevor Knott is on the chat to take your questions, and he's joining us from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hello, Trevor. Are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I know that you yourself are going through some life changes. I want to congratulate you on your new position and hopefully a better way of living and working.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So everybody, please know that Trevor is there to take your questions on the chat. I can't see the chat for obvious reasons, but he'll go ahead and let us know if you have any questions for us. Today we wanted to really focus on, again, we've been doing a lot of shows on health, and I think it's very important because many of us don't realize what we're putting into our bodies, the water we're drinking, the water that is used in processed foods, the water that we have in our shower. I mean, I talk about this till I'm blue in the face, and a lot of it has to do with our diets and our lifestyle and whatnot. And the way that the world is set up right now, especially if you're living in a Western quote-unquote civilized world, it's becoming more and more difficult to get nutritious foods in your system, and as well as eating things that aren't genetically engineered with God knows what the side effects are. But hopefully today we're going to get some answers. We'll get some direction. As I said, we are hoping for Sonia to come online. I don't know where she is. We were looking forward to having her join us for this first hour. Thank goodness our good friend Wil Spencer, who happens to be a radio host on this particular radio station as well, is stepping in to speak with us. He was going to be a part of our second hour, but luckily we are with him a little earlier. Dr. Wil Spencer, for those of you that don't know, is a naturopath. He is an author and researcher and an advocate for nature. His work extends into multiple areas of investigative research and education regarding human and environmental health relative to identifying and restoring the degraded conditions of natural homeostasis, most often due to the industrialization and misunderstanding of the importance of microorganisms. And without further ado, Will, if you're there, I'd like to welcome you to the program. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Bernard. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, what a pleasure, what a pleasure. We've been wanting to get you on for quite a while. I love the way that things just sort of gelled into place over the weekend, and we get the honor of having you today. So thank you for joining us. How are you doing this afternoon?
Well, still alive.
Okay.
Through another night.
And so, for those of us, I know that, again, you are a radio host here. You've been on many radio shows and have been on several, I believe you've been on Alex Jones as well a couple times and other programs. Can you tell our audience a little bit about where you came from and what brought you this passion to do what you're doing now?
Oofta. Where I come from. Oh, man. I come from the northern Midwest, northern Minnesota, and from a farming community. And after 20-plus years of being really ill and suffering at the hands of allopathic medicine and the chemical companies and conventional farming, that really gave me the direction of going in the opposite direction because that didn't work. And then this has really just been my path to figuring out what's wrong with me and how to fix it. And it just so happens that everybody I know in the whole industrial world is having the same problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so right now you're at a place in your life now where you're being able to treat other people and have a practice, correct?
Well, see, here we come to politicalness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So treating, no, I don't treat anything. I treat myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just share my information, and there again, this is where I've seen a lot of my friends in natural health get harassed because they're using allopathic corporate terms, which are now illegal, if you will, for me to use, like words like cure and treat and patience. And I don't have that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just want to make that clear because I really do my best to not be involved in that whole medical world. I have no medical training virtually, other than from my aunt, who was a licensed nurse teaching nursing, and some other short courses in medical. So I know enough about the medical system, from my personal pain as well as others. And my training is pretty much exclusively in the alternate natural health, is what they call it in that world.
Right, of course. And, it's so funny. It's not funny, haha, but funny, strange how it seems to be, at least for me, in the way that I'm observing the way the world is going, how there seems to be like two parallel worlds. And what I mean by that is exactly, to me, you would be considered a healer, and it's someone that I would trust and I would go to for at least for advice. The same thing goes with a lot of other, titles and whatnot. And it seems that there are just so many people that are clinging on to the old paradigm and the old standards, where it looks like we're just developing this whole new community of alternative, whether it be alternative healing or alternative study or alternative academia. It just seems to be the right way to go. Actually, it seems to be the right way to go. With that being said, I understand that you were recently, and I want to start here because I got into a little bit of a debate on Facebook over this yesterday. You were recently on Roxy Lopez's show and discussing this like illness that's going around, and people think it's the flu. I know I contacted you about it because I had it's like every month some new form of a fever or an infection keeps coming back. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. I've seen people that are getting vaccinated. They're not. They're still getting flus, or what they think is the flu. And I happen to agree that it's not necessarily the flu. It could be. It's most likely going to be something else. I wonder what your thoughts are on this new fake flu that's going around.
All right, it has flu-like symptoms, if you will, and we're able to look for the exact frequency of all the known flus, even a few of the mutated that don't even have names yet. And for the most part, like 95% of the time, it's not the flu. It's not the flu virus. We're having more bacterial and fungal problems than anything. Like here on the East Coast, as well as people I've been in contact with all over the continent, are having this. This is like not isolated at all. There's something that just went through our house here over the last 2 weeks. Like everybody, it was diarrhea, vomiting, fever, cramping. You know, they call that flu symptoms, but it's not the flu. Wow. It's a bacterial or a fungal issue, and it's like mutates. It's like changes. And
it seems to mutate and change. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to share that for me, I just had that so-called stomach virus or whatever, stomach flu. But the month before, it was a kind of like a strep throaty type illness, and so it feels like you never really get better, and it seems to be something that is becoming very common, and I can't help to think of what causes something like that.
Well, it's a microorganism overpopulation or a pathogenic effect. The microorganism, whichever one it is, or group of them. And we're seeing such huge loads of these pathogens. Like we're talking groups of bacteria. Like there's, just for instance, with Lyme, there's over 80 different bacterial strains that can be deemed Lyme.
Oh wow,
80, over 80.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's like 86 or 87 now. Just with Lyme, and that's why allopathic treatment, as well, and most natural treatment doesn't work, because most of what we have going on is a microorganism problem. Like polio. Polio is a there's a microorganism family that actually causes what they have deemed as polio. Same with encephalitis. Now there's several different encephalitis strains that, this is where, like, this has been 80 plus years, almost 100 solid years now. They've known these organisms have been at the root of these problems. But yet we have this fear porn about germs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all one and the same. Germs is the same as probiotics, is the same as microorganisms. They're interchangeable. It's all in how they market or they use the terms. When you say germs, people have this preconceived idea, oh my gosh, that's bad.
Right.
But it's no different. It's the same definition as a probiotic. It's just a beneficial microorganism that's gone pathogenic. Then they call it germs, or they call it, there's so many diseases, if you want to use that word, or illnesses, just for instance, that are rooted in these pathogen overloads. Like there's over 2,500 symptoms that can manifest in your body, of course not all at once, that can express itself just with one of the Candida family overgrowths. 2,500 symptoms just with a fungal problem.
And how does something like that, A, get into our system and become pathogenic?
Because it's in the environment. All these things are in the environment. This is one thing that they've demonized, that the truth of the matter is, and the new science, like Dr. Bruce Lipton's has been saying this for years, all this stuff is in the environment.
Right.
All of it, even polio. I mean, we're finding, I found leprosy just a few months ago. I had 2 clients that had the leprosy microorganism, and I forget the long name, but the short name that shows up is leprosy.
Mm-hmm.
Polio. I find polio, like, I'll say like 7 or 8 people have polio in the last 6 months that I found. So It's just in the environment. And then when we get to a degenerated state, then it's like the connection is made that, okay, so our body's in the specific degenerated state, and then these microorganisms like find a home in you.
Yeah, right. And you're reminding me of, I myself do healing as well. I focus more on energetic healing. But even in my training, they tell us that we're breathing these germs all the time. We're breathing viruses and flus and diseases and illness. It's around us all the time. It's when our body is not working optimally that it allows, I guess, for lack of a better term, it allows it to be a host for the pathogenic aspect of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like a lock and key. You know, you have just the right lock formation, and these things just kind of come in and they fit, and there they are. They make themselves at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's really that simple. And like I say, Dr. Bruce Lipton's been saying this for so long. It's just I wish people would listen to his stuff, because it's just a matter of the environment, and we live in the environment.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And, you know, I love the way that the, I guess for lack of a better term, the mainstream, or like you said, the allopathic community likes to say that they've conquered a particular disease and they've wiped it out. I'm sure that we still have the plague. I'm sure we have all these things floating around us that we've just seemed to have overcome, or it's not allowing itself to host in our bodies.
Right. Yeah. And there again, that is just more marketing strategy. They withhold information, and then they tell you, oh, we have a flu scare, go get your flu shot.
Right. Well, the latest one, I've got to laugh, is, geez, what is it? And it's not funny if you haven't, trust me. I have had friends that have had it as shingles, and it's all over the media now. Get your shingles vaccination. And it's to the point where I don't even own a television, but, you know, it pops up on the internet sometimes. And, you know, the other night I had a little itch in the back. I'm like, oh, God, I hope it's not shingles. But, you know, that's what it does to you. That's what this hype and this marketing and this propaganda. And I can't help but wonder, you know, how much of a shingles outbreak is there really, or is this just the disease du jour?
Well, that's about it. It's all about the marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my mom has said that I have had shingles before, but I don't really remember it, so I guess it wasn't really too bad.
Good.
Well, it's also called chickenpox if you're a kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's chickenpox for kids and shingles for grown-ups.
Right.
Unbelievable. I just love how right now, I mean, we can drive by the local CVS pharmacy, and there's a big sign outside, get your shingles vaccination. And I can't help but wonder what's in those vaccinations, but we can talk about vaccines and whatnot later on. I do want to say, because going through that viral stomach thing I had, about a week and a half ago, barely a week, 2 weeks ago, that I didn't realize about using probiotics. I started throwing probiotics into my diet, as well as taking a probiotic supplement, and it's like night and day. I mean, it truly is like night and day. My stomach is completely, it's back to normal again. My lactose intolerance is gone. My gas is gone. You know, all of these things, and I guess we forget, like you said, because for me, probiotics just sounded like a germ, just like you had said before. And I can't help but, you know, sing the praises. Actually, it was Miriam Delicata who suggested I started using them for my stomach, and it has made a very, very big difference. But I can't help but wonder, what are your thoughts on the use of probiotics for something like a stomach virus?
Well, absolutely, because it's all about balance, and these organisms are able to manifest in a pathogenic form. Because if you let's just look at definitions: pathogenic or pathogen. All right. I mean, this is like first year microbiology. I'll share some very simple concepts that it's when you think about things from this perspective, it'll change your view. Okay, we need E. coli, Salmonella, Staph, Strep, Listeria, Clostridium, and these other, what they have labeled as pathogens. We need those in our system just as much as we need Acidophilus or Bifidus or the other 10,000 different strains of organisms, because it's all about balance. And pathogenic just means out of balance, really. E. coli and those pathogenic or labeled, organisms, we actually need them because they create some of our vitamins inside of our GI tract for us. They're actually quite important organisms. It's when they go out of balance or pathogenic that they cause the problem. And what allows them to go pathogenic is the lack of balance. We don't have these organisms in our GI tract or in our body or in our environment to help with the balance. Epigenetics, which is a new study now, new science that's come about in the last 10 years, has been saying that it's not about taking 500 billion colony-form units of Acidophilus or any specific one strain. It's about taking lower doses, if you will, with a multitude of different strains or different families. Now, I recommend the products that we actually make because I couldn't find these strains, so I've actually had to become a manufacturer of these other strains. We have over 400 different strains of microorganisms in the products that we use. The most common ones people are so commonly, in the store are like the kind in yogurt, the colonizing ones. They're very common to get. Well, we specialize in the non-common ones. The ones that they don't just multiply outside of their natural environment of the earth. And those are responsible for the majority of our health because they're very sensitive and they're just not in our environment anymore. So by putting them in, you're creating this balance. And then things like an E. coli or salmonella or these foodborne issues, they just disappear.
Right. Now, Will, is it fair to say that we've said it already before that germs are people are just scared of them, but as far as trying to create a balance again, you're talking about balance, and I'm wondering, are there foods like, let's say someone starts taking the probiotic, is there something that will kill them even though you're taking them? Like, is there an importance of not eating corn syrup after you take a probiotic? Are there negative combinations that can be done, or will they survive?
Oofda. Yes and no.
Okay.
That's not a very simple answer to answer, but yes, there are things that can compromise that. And there again, are you talking supplements, or are you talking like the fermented type foods or yogurts and stuff like that?
I would think more the supplements, to be more direct.
Well, yes, if you're doing any pharmaceuticals or over-the-counter drugs, there's going to be a compromise going on. It will cause, because they're anti-life.
Right.
They're chemical compounds.
I see.
And there again, some of the natural things too. You can actually take too much vitamin C, which will create an acidic environment and cause some die-off too of the microorganisms. So here's where some of the natural things in high concentration will lead to a problem also.
Right. And I'm sure there are certain, protocols would be a good word, but what I'm thinking of is like an order of taking these things. And I'm asking this quite honestly for a personal reason. I take all my supplements in the morning. I take a multivitamin, I take magnesium, I take potassium, I take the probiotic, but I also drink coffee. And I can't help but wonder, by the way, I always start the morning with a tall glass of water with a teaspoon of baking soda as well to hopefully alkalize a little bit. But I'm wondering, with the coffee, after, having breakfast and taking the supplements, how much of it is actually, getting absorbed into the system, or am I just killing what I'm trying to put in there?
Well, that's a good practice, I believe, anyhow. If you're going to do coffee, then just don't take anything for about an hour. Let the coffee go through and do its thing, and then you can put the other stuff in.
Oh, good. Okay. That's about what I do then. Very good. I like to start off with coffee, then I have breakfast, then I take my supplements. Somebody had said to me to take the supplements after dinner or after breakfast, and I thought that to be strange, because I would think I'd want to digest with the food, but it seems to make sense to me. What is your concept as far as that's concerned? If you're taking supplements, should you take them before or after breakfast?
Well, that kind of depends. I have some things that work a little better if you take them beforehand, like enzymes and some of the probiotics, if you take them beforehand.
Oh, okay.
And then there's some supplements that we use that you take during the meal. They actually help breaking down the food better, and they actually are more beneficial taking with the meal. And then there are some things that's better if you just take them alone, like an hour or two away from everything.
Right. To allow the body to be able to absorb it fully.
Right. If you're needing glutamine, which is an amino acid, or colostrum, that they work just a little better if you take them all by themselves. The body will just use it as if food, so it doesn't get mixed in with the food, and then the body's got to sort it all out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I have to give you my sources. I'm laughing now. I'm thinking about where I got this from. It was the trainer at my gym was telling me to take my multivitamin with my coffee, actually, he said. He goes, the coffee will help break it down. But again, I guess maybe that doesn't work for all supplements. So let's always remember to double check our sources. And I do that with everything we learn, whether it be health or news or education. Let's make sure that we cross-check where we're getting our information and what we can do to optimize, especially when it comes to things dealing with our health. I think it's really important. We have about 2 more minutes on this particular segment before the break, but to go back to supplements, and then hopefully after the break we can talk a little bit more in depth about some of the protocols that you have to offer. But what would be, let's say, for someone that doesn't really, let's say, have a particular disease or imbalance, just to maintain a stable baseline of health, what would be some of the supplements that would be good to use in the morning?
Well, we use minerals because everybody's lacking minerals. It's unavoidable. Our food chain has been deficient of minerals for a solid 100 years, and that's a well-known fact.
Yeah.
Amino acid supplementation is a must because the food has got distorted amino acids, and if the minerals in the soil is deficient, the plants are going to be deficient, and the animals are going to be deficient, and we're going to be deficient. That's a must. Enzymes, at least with your meal, help break it down because we're so compromised. There's so many chemicals in our environment that are just wreaking havoc on our digestive system. So we need all the help we can get there, as well as the probiotics. So
that would be good to start off with in the morning. Now, when you say enzymes, where could we get enzymes? Is it in our food or as a supplement or a little bit of both?
Well, supplementation, if you're eating more raw food, so you can actually get it if there is any in the food. Otherwise, supplementation. I've got it down to 2. We manufacture 1, and then we import 1 from Canada. So I go for quality.
Very good.
The stuff you can get in the store has such minimal quality that,
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show. We are here speaking with Dr. Wil Spencer about our health and the truth of health. What's going on with our planet, with our food, with our supplements, and what's the best way to really not get sick anymore. I know many of us have been getting a lot sicker lately, especially with the nutrition values going down in our food. Dr. Wil Spencer, welcome back. I want to, if we could, I want to go a little bit into the GMO situation, and even if we can just touch on this, because there was a time last year when I decided I was going to go vegetarian. And I decided, for 30 days, let me do like a cleanse and just not eat any meat whatsoever. And I did. For 1 month, I was a vegetarian, thinking that I was detoxing my body and helping. Now, as I look back, as a matter of fact, I still have some of the packages in the freezer. I did my best to find organic and non-GMO vegetarian dishes and whatnot, but it was very difficult, I'll tell you. And it turned out that some of the major brands, which deal with rice and soy and whatnot, were all genetically modified. So here we have this double edge of people that are trying to either be vegan or vegetarian, but yet they're still getting the genetically engineered plants and fruits and whatnot. I was wondering if there's any advice that you have, or if you could at least educate our vegetarian friends what to look out for.
Well, being a former vegan vegetarian, it took about 3.5 years until my body started falling apart. I believe it's a moral choice, but it's not a viable biological choice. That's just me. I'm not aligned with that after my own personal pain and experience. And like Dr. Weston Price, a dentist, found out in the 20s and 30s that the majority of the Aboriginal people on this planet never lived that way. And it's not a viable choice. And now we live in like the age of disinformation.
Yeah.
The most of the information we're being fed in even the natural health world now is inaccurate. And it's been strategically implemented this way since the late 70s, when the natural health world started to become compromised by the pharmaceutical thinking. And we have most of the big companies nowadays are all owned by subsidiaries that also own pharmaceutical industries.
Mm-hmm.
So the information that we're being fed is to basically feed that revenue stream, just like the pharmaceutical industry and the allopathic medicine feeds that revenue stream. So it is another reality, and most of the natural health world really has very little to do with your vibrant health. It has everything to do with selling you stuff.
Yeah.
And I've spent lots of money, and I've thrown away wheelbarrow loads of stuff that have no relevance to the actual my health, unfortunately.
Now, are you talking about, let's say, those of us that maybe go shopping at Whole Foods or Trader Tom's or whatever that place is called, Trader Joe's, and they're buying, let's say, for example, I have a dear friend of mine that introduced me to something which I found to be disgusting, but it was stir-fried teriyaki tofu. And it's prepackaged. It's this glob of stuff, and I'm sure the ingredients aren't, that good for you when you think about that. Tofu comes from soy, which is most likely going to be genetically modified. But is that what you're referring to, the prepackaged stuff that even...
Well, I'm referring to as a whole, but let's just look at that particular food-like substance if you want to.
Yes,
really,
please.
I'll talk to you about just that.
Okay, great.
Introducing soy into the human diet is extremely harmful. We have the phytoestrogens, which are the plant estrogens, which actually cause a lot of problems to our endocrine system, and the thyroid is one of those organs that take a beating when we eat soy. There's these phytochemicals, if you will, that's in soy, and the phyto or plant proteins themselves are actually toxic to mammals, and we're mammal. They're very hard on our digestive system. They cause hormonal imbalances. They cause problems with our GI tract, just the soy alone. And so just on that, I don't even recommend eating soy. I mean, I was raised on, because my mother had some problems. I wasn't able to breastfeed, so I was one of the babies that got the soy products right from birth. And it really messes with the human body. I mean, I had breasts when I was in elementary school, well, bigger than the girls, if you will.
And that's from the estrogen in there, I suppose.
The estrogen is one of the things, yeah. And so that, the soy, you can Google the soy, and there is so much information that dispels all that that other junk science from the 70s and 80s about soy. Soy isn't even a food, in my opinion.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for that. Because I personally feel that, for me, I mean, it's just so processed. A lot of these, I don't know. I can't even think of some of these brand names like not Nature Valley, but Nature Zone or something like that. And they try to sell you this. I mean, I even bought bacon, bacon that's made of soy, and it tasted like a chemical to me.
Well, it is. Those are synthetic flavor enhancers that they put into that, and then they put food coloring to make it look like bacon. I mean, it's what it is. It's fake.
Right, exactly.
We're designed to eat real whole food, like fruits and vegetables, animal products.
Exactly.
animal, and this is you had mentioned before about this vegan thing, and this is what Dr. Weston Price found in the 20s and 30s, that animal products have some special characteristics that we as humans can only get from animal products. Your vitamins A, D, E, K are only available to the human being through animal sources. We don't get any of that out of plant material.
Wow.
That's one, and the indigenous cultures that lived on this planet years and years ago, I'm talking, 80, 90 years ago in his research, they had like the perfect white teeth. They were straight. They had the wide sinus cavities, and they had no problems with their digestive tract and their upper GI tract, their sinuses like us Europeanese people do with the pinched faces and the crooked teeth.
Yeah.
Well, majority of their diets were just that, the hunter-gatherer type of diets. That was the animal products and the seasonal fruits and vegetables.
Exactly.
And they didn't have these problems, and they did not eat grain. They did not eat nuts and seeds like we do today. That was the other thing.
Okay, great. You know what? You opened up a plethora of questions for me here as far as like bread is concerned. Many people are selling the idea of don't ever eat bread, don't ever eat gluten, wheat is bad. I've even gone out and paid $7 for a loaf of frozen rice bread, which tastes like cardboard. But what are your thoughts on bread? I know it turns into sugar, and I know it's probably not good for us.
Well, this is one of my favorite topics because I have a lot of research into this, because I used to actually on my farm, I raised grain, I had a flour mill, and I baked bread. When I discovered the detriments of these grains and to the human body, I quit all of that. I sold everything.
Oh, okay.
It's grain in general.
Oh.
And seeds and nuts are thrown into the same category. And in my opinion, they're not food. And I learned this from a 42-year professor of anthropology who was a client of mine for a while. He taught how societies lived and operated in the past for like eons. The way we eat bread today is not even considered food. And it took the old timers in the past, it took them 14 days basically to make what they call bread.
Mm-hmm.
To disable all the phytochemicals, to pre-digest all the insoluble fiber, and to make it into something that does not harm you. Because the amount of harm that is caused to the human body by ingesting bread like we have today is huge. I mean, this topic alone, there's so much disinformation, misinformation, no information on the web that it's not even a food item in my book.
Right. Now, I'm very curious about this bread that was made by the ancients. What kind of bread was it, and is it possible to recreate something like that?
Well, if you take 14 days, and here's I'll just give it to you roughly, and there's more to it, but this is roughly. So they take and they sprout the grain, then they dry the grain, then they grind the grain, and then they ferment it with a dairy product, a milk of some kind from a mammal. Then they leave it sit in the sun and dry. Then they grind it. Again, all they had back then was stone grinders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they ferment it again, and they do this 3 cycles, 3 times. That's why it takes 14 days to make it. So, and it's a flatbread that they have now.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and they never lived on this daily. This was not a daily sustenance. This was not like the bulk of their diet. I mean, the grain and seeds and nuts were never raised like they are today until Mr. John Deere came up with the plow a couple hundred years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't feasible because there's so much labor intense. And anyhow, grain doesn't grow very well in a monocrop. That's why they have pest problems.
Yeah.
it's a grass. It's meant to be, it's in the natural cycle of things. It never grows like 100 acres all wheat or all rye or all oats. It just never does.
I can't help but feel that whoever developed that, and I know that the evolution of, let's say, wheat was a big part of feeding the masses. And I can't help but think that the motivation was just to make people feel full, not necessarily be healthy. What about corn? Is corn considered a grain, maize?
It is in its dried form. If you're going to eat the corn off a dried, the corn kernels,
Right.
Corn cob, like sweet corn, in its milk state, is considered a vegetable. At least my understanding of it, and it doesn't harm you like dried grain. Once it gets into the seed form, that's when it turns to that dry starch and it goes into a dormant state. Then the characteristic changes. It becomes detrimental. And there's some real simple science behind this to really bring it into a simpler state. Is the seed of the plant is its baby, and the plant, because its inability to move, it can't run from a predator. In order for it to save the species, it has put in natural pesticides or chemicals into the seed to protect it from the predator. And when the predator eats the seeds of the babies of the plant, it causes problems with the predator. The first thing to happen is the reproductive issues. Okay, we have reproductive issues and fertility issues in the human race at epidemic proportions.
Yeah.
It also causes endocrine system problems. It also and with thyroid issues, it shuts the predator's system down. We have endocrine system problems in this country. It messes and shuts off the digestive system. Actually, the phytochemicals in grain actually shut off the humans' enzyme production. The lactase is the biggest one, because we have lactose intolerance at epidemic high right now, and that's one of the outcomes of eating grain is you lose the ability to digest lactose. Excuse me. And it shuts off some of your other enzyme production, like your protease, your lipase, and your amylase, which we need those in order to digest other animal products. So just eating the seeds of the plant causes us such a problem in so many different areas that I don't even consider it a food. It's just not a food.
I see. Okay. Wow. I want to throw out half of my cupboard.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny because, for me, it's a cultural thing. I come from South Florida. My family was Cuban and Hispanic, and we lived off rice and cornmeal and tortillas. And, all of that was very much a staple of our diet, especially rice. What are your thoughts on rice? Again, it falls along the same category?
Yeah, it's a seed of a grass plant.
Right.
It's not food. And here's a problem. Here's where we can start getting right into the fine lines, because you have cultures on the planet that have eaten rice for a long time, but when they come to this country, what we have as rice in this country is nothing like they have rice in their countries. I have been involved in hauling and moving food around in this country, and believe me, if it doesn't say non-genetically modified rice, you might as well take it is genetically modified. I don't care if it's organic or not, because most of the rice in this country is raised in Arkansas. And Arkansas, there is no organic rice. They may have it on the label, but they can put it on the label because they've paid the price to have it marketed that way. You know what? And can you go a little bit further in helping us understand that? Because a lot of people, especially those of us that are not educated in the legalities behind that, I know so many people, including myself, who was very confused at one time, the difference between a natural product, an organic product, and a non-GMO product. I saw something the other day that said all natural, and it was a soda. And I'm like, yeah, all natural because it's made from sugar. I don't, So
can you explain why these products get to have that organic, especially the organic label on it?
Because they've paid the price. On my farm, I was looking, and when I wised up and go, oh my gosh, I'm poisoning my ground with chemicals like my father did, and now I want to do it differently. I want to be better, sustainable. So I looked into getting organic certification. Well, you have to pay the extortion fee, is what I call it. You pay the price, you wait the 3 years, a lot of time, and then you get the ability to call your products organic. And then all organic really means is you're not using chemicals in the raising of the plant. That's really all it means.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's even more healthier. It just means it's less toxic.
Right.
In the raising, because they can still use chemicals and fungicides in the transportation and storage of these food items. You see, so you really, this goes into the political side of things because the labeling laws in this country are so weak because the industrial companies have paid to lobby to make the laws weak so then they can get by with using more crap in the food chain so this product lasts longer on the shelf, so it can ship and stay in storage longer, and it has nothing to do with your health, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'll share a personal experience with you, which I shared it with Roxy Lopez, and she said, throw it out. I had bought what I thought, well, it is labeled as organic milk, cow's milk. And I couldn't help but notice that the milk would not go bad. I had forgotten about it. It was in my refrigerator for about a month, and it had not soured yet. And she was like, that is not organic. You need to throw that out. And I can't help but wonder, even though, let's say it's grown organically or the cows are grain-fed or grass-fed or, whatever it is that gives it the label of organic, I wonder what happens to it during the processing and or, is it irradiated? Is it the pasteurization? What causes it to have such a long shelf life? Because for me, if something is organic, I would think it would spoil quicker.
Well, you would think that, and see, this is these perceptions that we've had that are not accurate anymore, because as soon as they pasteurize it, they're killing all the living organisms off that actually cause the breakdown of the milk for it to sour. Mm-hmm. So they extend the shelf life, and then they add vitamin D or some of these other additives that they're adding into the milk. They can still call it organic because it's only because they didn't use chemicals in the raising of this particular product. So they can put in milk vitamin D, which is actually a preservative, but yet they've labeled it as a vitamin D, mm-hmm. but it's a preservative, and it's actually quite toxic. It comes in these placarded containers to the milk factories, and they add a little bit in. That gives it the shelf life. Hmm. And whether they're irradiating it or not, there again, that's individual company. Usually they're not, and only the larger companies are. The non-organic companies are. But now we have this whole new topic coming up with they've asking the milk industry is lobbying the government to allow aspartame and some of these other neurotoxins to be put into the milk to make it taste better or last longer or whatever. I mean, mm-hmm. it's insane. And another topic I want to add to the milk is like raw milk in itself. It doesn't like spoil. It actually that's part of the fermentation process that naturally goes through. That's what yogurt is. Yogurt or sour cream is basically just is fermented milk. Mm-hmm. So it's different products that come out of the same if it's raw, in fact raw.
Well, going back to the organic label, quote unquote, there's a movie I'd like to recommend to everybody if you haven't seen it yet. It's called Farmageddon, and it covers a lot of different topics. We're talking about milk, which is what made me think of it. It talks about the attack on the raw milk industry, as well as the small farmer who is trying to get labeled organic. And there's an interview there with a particular woman, I believe in Georgia, who is a quote-unquote organic farmer, and she basically, the interview covers her obstacles of becoming organic and how much money she's had to pay and the time, just like everything you just described. So it does make you understand a little bit more and educate you a little bit more as far as the idea of what organics really is. Now, being an organic farmer, of course, would be better not to have pesticides. I firmly agree with the practice of natural cultivation, if we can do it, by all means. But again, like Will pointed out, is the product even genetically modified? It could be, I'm assuming they can call something organic even though it's a GMO.
They say, yeah, if you look at the labeling laws, from one of the statistics I was secondhand information now told is you can have up to 30% genetic modification and still have a label on the overall plant, on the overall package, say organic.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that makes complete sense because you would think, something like, well, a good example is corn. We can grow it, especially now with the corn that has the BT in it, its own pesticide. It could be grown organic without chemicals because it's already genetically modified to kill the bugs by itself.
Right. Now, when we eat it, it just keeps on producing pesticides inside us.
Exactly. And, again, I don't want to go back to the beginning, but I have to. I'm thrown for a loop as to the fact of how we've just given Monsanto complete reign over the food industry and have, basically turned our backs as Americans and thinking that this is okay just to pass a financial resolution in our Congress, and we'll get a little bit more into the politics of it. We only have another minute in this particular segment, but Will, ever so quickly, do you know any other large company that is involved in the food industry as much as Monsanto? I just saw something today on Democracy Now! Saying that actually Walmart is also a competitor with Monsanto as far as genetically modifying stuff. Do you know any others that we should be aware of?
Oh yeah, Bayer, Ciba-Geigen, ADM, Cargill. There's a dozen or more of them that are large, multi-billion-dollar corporations that, like Tom's of Maine, used to be a really good product.
Yeah.
And now they're owned by something else, by one of these corporations. I think it's Cargill or something. If you look on their toothpaste,
Colgate bought them or something, I believe.
Yeah, you look on their ingredients, and now they have fluoride in Tom's of Maine, or they have sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a carcinogen in Tom's of Maine, and they never used to have it when they were.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show. I am Bernard Alvarez. I just wanted to remind all of our listeners that this is only one show that I do. You can find more about the programs that I cover and host at thegic.org. That's the Global Illumination Council. We have multiple programs throughout the month, this being one. We are here every Tuesday on Revolution Radio at noon, covering topics just like the one we're talking today. And also we have our live streaming program, a video program, every Thursday at 4 p.m. on thegic.org. This week is our consciousness class, and we're going to be discussing meditation and contacting your higher self. It's going to be a great topic. Anyway, you can find us on thegic.org. As well, if you want to learn more about Dr. Wil Spencer, you can go to bodyelectrician.com to find out more about his work and more about the topics that we are discussing here. And without further ado, let's welcome Wil Spencer back to the show. Hi, Will. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, and thank you so much for plugging my website. I do appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. And you also, let me just plug your show. What day is your show on here on Revolution Radio?
Revolution Radio is Wednesdays from 2 to 4 Eastern Time.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. I'm going to have to check that out. Tomorrow's my day off. I can actually sit around and listen.
It's also simulcast on Wolf Spirit Radio, too, and I do a Monday evening show from 7 to 9 over there also on Mondays.
Okay, great. Wow, we're just all over the place, you and I, aren't we?
Right, yeah.
Anyway, before we went on break, we had just started dipping our toe into these huge multinational conglomerate food processing, or food manipulating and food nutrition destroying companies, and we were talking a little bit about Cargill. that was one of the ones that you had mentioned, and I can't help but think back during my, I guess, my Greenpeace years, I'll call it, back in my late teens and early 20s. And Cargill was the number one we were after because of what they were doing to the rainforest and just, clear cutting, tens of thousands of acres to create grazing fields and processing plants right off of the Amazon River there. So, I mean, you're looking at we are all looking at not only what they're doing to our food, but to the entire cycle of life itself. It's affecting every aspect. And of course, here we are talking with Wil Spencer about nutrition, and I can't help but wonder, what is, if there is any nutritional value to any of these McDonald's hamburgers that they process or Burger King hamburgers that they process.
I don't think so. They're industrial waste products, by definition, in my glossary.
Right. And is that to say that that the meat is just so tainted with hormones and other, whatever you want to call it, preservatives, for lack of a better term, that it's just it's junk?
Well, yeah, it's designed not to rot.
Yeah.
And rotting is digestion. And there's been burgers that I've seen on the internet for 5 and 6 and 7 years that are sitting on people's shelves, along with French fries. Yeah. From those fast food places. They look just about like the day they were cooked.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not food.
No, like I think of it as plastic. I mean, you would think it's plastic for it to last that long. So we talk about, we were just talking about, let's say the American law system of how we've just allowed Monsanto free reign in our food. But there are international, ramifications as well. One thing that I find that is not being mentioned, and I'm wondering if you have any background as far as researching this, is the whole the Codex Alimentarius aspect of what's happening with our food on an international level. And I just can't help but wonder if this Monsanto Protection Act is somehow connected to this whole homogenization of the global food industry, and what your take on it is.
Oh, absolutely. And there again, it all ties in. And this is where we get into the political stuff, because it's assumed that we're all representing our corporate fiction, and all these laws, this Codex Alimentarius and all these other laws, if you will, that are passed in this country, they only pertain to the corporate fiction, not to us human beings. And see, this is where this is a whole other path, a whole other rabbit hole, whatever you want to call it, that people don't even know exists. That it's huge. And there's other countries, whole countries now, that are standing up in mass, forcing their governments to make it illegal to use Monsanto seeds and chemicals, to make it illegal to have Codex Alimentarius and all of its other statutes in their country at all. You see, and it's most of this stuff is starting right here in this country, North America.
And then being exported.
Yeah, and being exported and forced on these other countries that are less knowledgeable by force and coercion. Like India. I mean, India, they tried to do the BT cotton.
Oh, yeah.
That it was supposed to be this great, fabulous thing in the 90s. Well, it turned out to be less productive, more toxic, and the farmers stopped using it. And they actually, a lot of them died in the beginning because they were going in debt so far to buy machinery to handle the raising of this particular cotton, because they promised all these fabulous things, they meaning Monsanto and the chemical companies, that it never came to be. And now they're making it illegal to even have those organisms, those genetically modified organisms or the chemicals in their country. It's illegal now in certain areas.
Good for them. Good for them. Yeah, that was very devastating. I've been following that for a few years now, especially, what's that wonderful woman that we post a lot of her videos.
Shiva?
Shiva, yeah, she's wonderful. And we just posted something that she had spoke about referring to this. And I mean, just the the heartbreak of these farmers. I mean, I think that she said something up to 100,000 committed suicide. I mean, this is over what Monsanto has done or had done to their economy. And thank goodness now everyone's starting to wake up. Now, unfortunately, the United States is still very far behind. I don't know if it's what the answer is, except for maybe doing shows like this and educating the public and trying to get as many of us aware of what is happening, not only in our country but around the world. And I think that's why it's important that we bring in, what's happening around the world, where countries are banning this stuff. And a great example. And I'm a foodie as well. I love food. I don't like sports, but I love cooking shows. I sit there and I root for the winning chef and all that stuff, and I love to cook. I'm a great cook. I really enjoy it, and there's something to be said where the foodie culture is like American food just has no taste because of the hormones of the pasteurization process. They laugh at our cheese, it's like, that's not cheese,
Yeah, right.
Because all the germs are out of it, like you said. They've taken all of the germs out of it, which gets rid of all the flavor. And I don't know if this is me, but maybe I'm speaking to the right person for this. Is I can't help but notice over the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years, I don't know what has happened. Maybe it's something with my body. Maybe it's just something that my taste buds are dying, which I doubt because I love food. But the chicken has no flavor, and the consistency is very different recently. And I go out of my way sometimes to buy quote unquote organic chicken. I make sure it doesn't have hormones, or I'll choose what are the two big companies, Tyson and Purdue. I believe one doesn't use hormones over the other or something. But, I will do my best to get good chicken. And I just feel that it tastes more rubbery. I don't know what it is. And I was wondering if maybe you had a clue of what.
Oh, yeah. I have a very intimate relationship with the poultry industry. I did a whole show yesterday with Patrick Jordan about turkeys.
Oh, great.
I had a client that was a manager on a Genio turkey farm in Minnesota. And he was ill, extremely ill, and having health problems with his family too. And he managed 15 barns on one of the farms. And I had a whole day I spent in that farm setting, and got to see multiple, literally the bags of antibiotics they dump in the water. The gallons of chemicals that they spray in these barns before they bring the chickens in, the toxicity in the food that they feed them with GMO soybeans, corn, and GMO cottonseed, as well as other things that it's technically not a hormone, but it is a synthetic growing aid. So here again is more of that, spinning the reality and getting around the wording of things to make it legal. So yeah, the whole poultry industry in this country alone, unless you absolutely have a relationship with your farmer that you get your food from, you don't know where your food's coming from and what's going on. Trust me.
And that's what causes the taste and the texture to change?
Well, sure. Yeah, they're feeding it. Your chickens and turkeys by nature are not seed eaters. They would chase down a grasshopper or dig up a worm or grub before they'll go and pick seeds off of plants to eat them. They'll eat the leaves before they'll eat the seeds. Just that.
Right.
Plus, it's all genetic modification, and it's got all kinds of pesticides in it. And then they use the pesticides and chemicals in the barns themselves. And they're never allowed outside, even though it says that they're free range. By definition, free range, they have to have a door that is 12 inches by 12 inches or bigger in the side of the barn, and it has to be open to the outside so the bird has the option of going outside at its will. but they never go out through that little door.
Right.
Because they're not bred to go outside. They're bred to exist in a monoculture inside a barn, and their legs can't withstand the amount of exercise that it takes to even walk outside and back, because they're bred to put on weight and to make meat and fat. So by definition, free-range bird, is a good concept, but they're raised in a barn. And they don't even go outside. A few birds maybe, but they don't go outside and range, free range, you see. And this is where we as people, as human beings, have power. And that is to get to know your local farmer, even if you got to travel 30, 40 miles, you get to know somebody. And that's how we change this country. I had a farm for about 8 years. I had an organic goat dairy. I call it organic because I didn't use any chemicals, but at the same time I used biodynamic principles where I fed the ground and I fed my animals. Mm-hmm. So, and that's how we make a difference locally. We can change this whole country in a matter of months if everybody started demanding locally raised food like it used to be, and you go make friends with your farmer. I sold directly off my farm right to the customer. They either came to my door or I took my stuff to them if I had a route that I went on. That's how we change this country, is locally, and you do it not just changing your buying habits, but you actually get to know that farmer, and then you support that farmer. And if the FDA and these other political extortionists want to cause problems, you stand up en masse against that FDA and this corporate crap we have to deal with. And we can change this country in no time.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And there is something to be said about knowing where your food comes from, by all means. The only setback, I will say, for that is you're going to pay a little bit more. But I think it's so much more worth it because, think of the illnesses that you're going to pay for down the line if we continue to eat this garbage. And what's going to happen, to our planet, what's going to happen to our food system, where it's headed, what has already happened. We have I'm planning, actually, it's funny how you said to go visit these farmers. I'm actually planning a trip with a couple of friends, with a friend of mine, to go to Joe Salatin's farm. He's only about 2 hours away from here, the Polyface farm.
Right.
And he's a huge advocate for the for the food industry and whatnot. And he admits, he said, it costs a little bit of money, a little more money because of what the work that they're doing in order to raise these animals. His chickens, and I loved what he shared about how he raises his chickens. He has a plot, I guess like a pasture, for lack of a better term, and he has these big coops, I guess. And he puts about 20 to 30 chickens in there, but he's got, several dozen of these. And he just moves them around the land every day. So they have clean feed, they have clean grass, and also the grass gets refertilized with their excrement. But I thought, to me, that would be real free-range chicken. I think I buy organic eggs. I do buy labeled organic eggs. And I was reading the label today because I knew you were coming on the show. I'm like, let me read the label. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, these are brown eggs. And yes, the yolk is definitely more brighter, a little bit more orangey. So to me, that's a sign of, a healthy egg. But I read it and it said cage-free, grain-fed. And yet their sister brand, it's the same brand, but they have another form that's free-range grass-fed. Can you explain a little bit what that means to the general public? What does that mean, cage-free, grain-fed?
Cage-free, grain-fed is what I was just explaining to you before, where you have a barn like 40 feet wide and 800 feet long, and you got 60,000 chickens in that barn. They don't have a cage.
I see.
Free range means, by definition, that they have a door that's 12 inches by 12 inches or bigger that allows them to access to outside. That's free range, according to that definition.
Right.
Okay, now if you go Salatin's way, which I've had friends that raise chickens that way. They call them chicken tractors, where they're like a 12 by 12 little pen in the kitchen, and you actually move them 12 feet every day. So every day they have fresh ground to eat, to pick at. And you do feed them a little extra, and you water them, and you can do it that way. My chickens on my farm, I raised eggs on my dairy farm, and I had about 150 hens that they were basically they roamed the entire farm. I never fed them, except in the wintertime a little bit. Otherwise, they were on their own, and they produced 150 eggs a day.
Wow.
Literally, I had their nesting boxes. They knew at night they had their roosts that they went into in their nesting boxes, but during the day they got the door open, and they literally were just scavenging the entire farm. And I never had flies. I didn't have mosquitoes. People would come to my farm, and I'm going, wow, I'd never been to a farm and didn't have flies. How I said I don't have flies because my girls are cleaning my farm up.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Plus, I wasn't using chemicals, and the environment on my farm, I did everything I could to have the environment so there wasn't a lot of need for the pests to be there.
Right, exactly. There's just so much, we're talking about chickens right now, and it just seems that there's just so much area to cover in this particular field of information. I just want to let everybody know also we're going to be continuing this particular topic next week. We're going to have Piper Lane joining us. She's from We Farm here locally in Virginia, and it's basically a little homestead project that her and her family are doing, and they're, again, raising their own chickens and goats and food as well. We have Carlos Martinez is going to be joining us from Food Integrity Now. So we're going to have a really good conversation continuing this particular topic next week here on Revolution Radio. But while we have Wil on the phone, and your experience, you said that you had a dairy farm. Now, as far as, and I know this is going to be a shocking topic for some people, meat. What is the best way for us to get good meat? And again, I understand we've got to meet our farmer, but when we meet our farmer, what would be, in your humble opinion, the best way to grow a healthy beef?
Well, like I had goats on my farm, my personal farm. My father had on his farm beef cattle. I had just a small farm, and I had pasture where they would go out and graze, and I cut hay for the winter time. My father, he had a large farm, like 3,000 acres and 800 cows. So he fed them the industrial way, where he would cut silage and the other industrial soybeans and things like that. Well, goats and cattle are ruminants. They sustain the best in nature naturally on grass.
Right.
And like Soliton, you talked about Joe, he does the same thing. They eat grass.
Yeah.
Ruminants eat grass. That's what they sustain on. They do not eat grain in nature. They eat the plant itself, not its babies. And by just feeding it its natural diet and allowing that animal to be in as much of its natural environment as possible is ultimately the best. Because like Weston Price found out, and this is this is 80-year-old information, by the way, that if you take and you feed the ruminant animal on a grain diet, you actually cause some of those vitamins not to be there anymore. And you're actually causing an acidosis state, which is a toxic state inside the animal, which leads nowadays, they found out, it's an E. coli or salmonella poisoning, actually, we can get. And if you just feed it its natural diet of grass, the vitamin content of the meat or the products that you're going to get from the animal is in there because of the natural diet. And it's all about nature, getting back to the natural, nature-based way that animal lives, as well as us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and living in alignment with nature, and ingesting products that are in alignment with nature is what I get out of it.
Right, that's the way we're designed.
Absolutely. And just as a footnote, and to get a little metaphysical here, I just wanted to share with our some of our listeners that might be against the slaughtering of animals for food or whatnot. I recently, not recently, about a year or so ago, watched for those of you that know who Abraham Hicks is, she was asked, what about vegetarianism and eating meat? And she said, don't be silly. That animal knew it was coming here, and it is happy to be a part of the process of keeping you alive. That is why it's here. So for those of you that are involved with the metaphysics behind it, if you're very concerned, then by all means follow your gut of what is good for you. But for me, I truly do believe that the animals know that they incarnate here at this time to be a part of giving life. And they've fulfilled their contract by being a part of the process of the food system. And unfortunately, animals are going to be a part of Cargill too, but hopefully them being a part of Cargill is a way of teaching us what not to do and what we don't want. So contrast is also part of that energetic contract that we are a part of. But as the Dalai Lama says, there's nothing wrong with nature. We just need to learn to align with it. As far as the best way for us to, let's say, going back to cooking and foodie and whatnot, the foodie aspect of it. Here we are. We have a great side of beef, let's say, or we have a great, nice organically grown chicken. Are there certain ways to cook it that the nutrients remain in it more than others? Like, is boiling better than broiling? What are your aspects as far as nutrition is concerned and getting the most out of any particular meat product?
Oh, sure. This may sound extremely controversial. Again, there's a book called Electrical Nutrition, and in there he says the less cooking the better of any fruit, vegetable, or animal product. When you cook, it's actually a preservation method. You're killing off the good stuff so the product lasts longer.
Right.
And raw is better. I'm a raw foodist. It's just that when you look at animal products as raw, you can think of sushi or sushimi, and actually for most of the world, they insist on a raw diet. And that goes for animal products as well. Not only dairy or cheese, but the meat and the other parts of it, it's more nutritious. The best, if you want to look at the scale, it is more nutritious the rawer you can take it. I still like my steak. I like my steaks warmed up, or my hamburgers warm, cooked on the outside, but 80% of it's still pink or red. But not everybody can do that because we have this psychological program that says that's bad for some reason.
I agree, and I can't help but notice, like I said, as a foodie, I watch my cooking shows, and every chef will tell you that it's got to be pink in the middle for it to have flavor, and I agree. The more well done, the more flavor it loses, and again, like you said, it's going to lose its nutritional value. But now there are laws. I mean, we literally have laws now, or we have I don't know if it's a law, but we have standards. Let's say if you go out to eat. And again, if I went out to eat at a restaurant and I didn't know where they got their food, I'd probably want to have a medium burger also. But a lot of places won't even serve anything below medium. And I'm wondering, is that a psychological thing, or is that also a law?
There are certain laws in certain states about that, yes. You have to ask because of the food scare thing. So, yeah, there's laws in place in certain areas that they force you to cook the meat, overcook the meat.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, because I've been working in the restaurant industry for about 16 years, and there is very strict laws about how meat is prepared. Now, we are allowed, of course, restaurants are allowed to serve steaks, as you want, blue, rare, medium rare, but when it comes to things like ground meat and stuff like chickens and pork, it has to be strictly cooked to a certain standard because of this whole, programming that everybody has been through.
And again, I guess it does depend. I guess it would depend on where you live and what the law is, or if it's just a standard of that particular restaurant. I think that I'm not sure how it is here in Virginia, but I did recently go to a restaurant where on the menu it said, don't even think about asking for medium rare. We cook everything medium or well. I was like, really? This is in the menu?
I get up and leave when they say that. I'm sorry. Then you don't want my business.
Exactly. Or and again, I don't know if that's just a policy or if it's a standard, a state standard. But if they're that afraid of their meat having salmonella or something, maybe they should get another supplier from, as far as I'm concerned. But again, it's all a matter of taste. I know. When I was a kid, my father used to literally butcher. We would buy a side of beef, and he would butcher the meat. I remember every several months on the kitchen table there'd be a half a cow, and I used to eat the meat raw all the time. And it was, I never got sick. Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show. We are discussing food and health and the truth about health here with Dr. Wil Spencer. Before the break, we were talking about eating raw foods, and I'm sure we stirred up a little bit of controversy there. I'm looking on the chat now. So let's clarify. Wil, you're basically saying that you're going to get more nutrition the rawer the food is. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. But the issue with that is our systems are so damaged. Mm-hmm. From the food that we have eaten prior to and from the environment that we live in. Just for instance, eating the grains, nuts, the seeds actually causes our body to not be able to digest animal products. So when you switch to a raw food diet, a lot of people at least I get to see the worst case scenarios a lot of times because, oh my God, I started eating raw food and I'm sick. I can't eat raw food.
Right.
Well, of course, because you have a damaged system, and now we have to repair the damage and get your system functioning like it's supposed to be so you can actually eat food the way we're designed. And that's the biggest thing I see is the systems are so damaged and degenerated that eating a raw food diet, it can be detrimental and cause harm.
And you know what? I feel, for me, from experience, the same applies with vegetables. For me, I don't know if you've seen this, but for people that switch from eating, let's say, cooked or processed vegetables or fruits to go strictly raw, it really messes up the digestive tract. I know I had a lot of problems when I switched to just eating raw fruits and vegetables a couple years ago. Again, I try to do that cleanse thing, and every once in a while, a couple times a year, I'll do that for about a month. And switching to just raw fruits and vegetables really messed up my digestive system. And I'm wondering, is that from what you said, the imbalance of the system not working correctly, or is it from the fruits and vegetables that I was eating?
I would say it's the system, our system. You can't handle that because it's your body has got used to a certain way of being. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you get customary, and then you change the whole thing. That then, in order for us to digest, it requires gastric juices in our stomach and some of the different bacterias, as well as the other bacteria, microorganisms in our GI tract. And when you change to a completely different food, right, without weaning yourself off and then weaning yourself into a new food, you cause such a problem because you can't digest it, because really digestion takes place in our body because of the microorganism population and the gastric juice combinations. Right. And if your body has no warning, then you can experience, problems, diarrhea or constipation or cramping or vomiting even, mm-hmm. because your system is not used to that.
I see. That makes a lot of sense to me. We have a question. Someone's really wanting to know, in reference to eating rarer and rawer foods, what about tapeworm?
Yeah, see, here's the problem. The tapeworm isn't the problem, or the worms that are associated with raw fish or raw pork or raw. That's not the problem. The problem is your system in a degenerated state Because the tapeworms, the roundworms, the nematodes, the trematodes, they're in our environment, they're in the food regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where we have to set the fear porn aside and look at the reality of it is it's there whether we like it or not. And it's only because our system is in such a degenerated state that that particular organism would consider us home and become pathogenic.
Oh, just like we were talking about any germs or diseases or bacteria that were pathogenic.
Oh, totally. It's just the same, right? You have larger organisms like the tapeworm, which happens to be a large pathogen or parasite. Mm-hmm. You have trematodes, nematodes. You have, plasmodias. You have all these other organisms that are just naturally in our environment. They're naturally in our food. They're naturally in us. It's only this goes back to balance again. We're coming back to that first conversation. Mm-hmm. With the microorganisms, the same with the larger organisms that's inside us. We depend on some of these, like the nematodes and trematodes, as part of our digestive ability. It's only when they get to a large volume or pathogenic state that they're starting to cause the problems.
So it's because of the state of imbalance that we're in that we're getting these, that we have to be concerned about things like tapeworm and other parasites.
Right. Yeah. It has to do with us, the host, not necessarily the food. Now, here's where we really should have some clarification again. Get down to definitions. If you're eating the conventionally raised industrial animal products, that's really not food. It's really just industrial waste. Mm-hmm. You see, this is where I'm talking about the food that you know of the farmer, or that you know where it's locally raised from the farmer's market or whatever, that you know how it was raised, or at least you can get the guy at the farmer's market stand to, acknowledge where it was raised, versus the Cargill where they're doing, 18 metric tons of food coming out the product every 5 minutes. Mm. You see, there's two different. We're talking about two completely different food items.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're not standing in their waste all day, and they're not, stuck together and taking hormones and antibiotics.
Oh yeah. I mean, I actually, my family had trucks, and I hauled animals from the farms and the stations to the manufacturing slaughterhouses, and I'm telling you what, there's a big difference in where the food comes from and being raised, believe me. And this is where, morally, I wouldn't even eat that stuff that comes, from Cargill or these other larger packing type houses. That's not food. That's poison.
Right. And very unhappy animals, I would think. And
totally.
For those of us involved in metaphysics, the energetics behind that, it can't be good for you ingesting that negative energy that poor animal's been raised with as well.
Oh, I know. And that's part of this. That's all part of the scheme of raising it that way. Is you shock the living hell into the animal, and it raises the testosterone, and not the other hormones. It actually helps the meat to be tenderer in a way as it goes through that industrial process. So it's all part of the scheme of things.
Oh wow! So they literally use fear to help enhance the meat, quote unquote.
Yeah, quote unquote. Right? Yes, exactly. I don't like that word enhance either, but you know what I'm saying.
Under their definition of enhanced.
Right.
Unbelievable. I've always felt they were tortured. I didn't know it was being done on purpose, though.
I believe it is. I mean, if you've ever, hauling animals into that kind of an environment, and then to watch how they're handled it's inhumane. I mean, literally, it's not good.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty nasty. And I've seen every one of those documentaries, Food Matters and The World According to Monsanto and all these other ones, and you just see these factory farms, for lack of a better term, and they're not even farms. They're I don't know what you want to call them.
They're industrial plants.
Yes, exactly.
It's all industrial processes. There is no gratitude. There is no thankfulness. There is no appreciation for the animal. And when you use and raise and consume the animal with gratitude, thankfulness, it changes not only your biology, it changes the food biology. Because I know the difference when we would actually have. I on my farm, I had educated Africans. They would come to our farm and they would do their ceremonies and stuff with the goats, though they butcher them the way they wanted to on our farm. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the gratitude and thankfulness with their ceremonies was amazing. That animal just stood there, and it freely, for the most part, it transitioned into their food. It was amazing the way these other cultures handle their food.
Yeah. No,
it was amazing.
It's true. It's true. It's the way, the intention behind the creation of food. Exactly. Now we're down to our last about 15 minutes or so, and I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit now about some of the work that you're doing in helping our bodies get back in balance. What are maybe some of your standard protocols? What are your suggestions for people to look out for in order to, let's say, if we wanted to eat a steak, basically still mooing, what would we have to do to bring our bodies back to that state?
Well, I've discovered some technology that I use, and I lean heavily on it right now, and it's called the galvanic skin response, GSR hand scanner device that we use. I actually have quite a few of these. I mail them all over. You actually rent my device, and it gives us a snapshot of what's going on in the body. I mean, we're looking at up to 30,000 different frequencies in the body: pathogens, parasites, hormone production, enzyme production, levels of stress on the body organs, the electrical meridian system. It's just a huge. If you got vaccine in your body, vaccine residue that's harming you, if you got viruses, it's just a whole huge list. And then it gives us a protocol based on what it finds. It has taken hours and hours and hours of work to look at we use muscle testing to figure out what's going on. Well, the same thing is using frequencies, but it's in a computer program, and it has taken the guesswork out of everything, and it works. Wow. And we have clients now on every continent that have been using and take advantage of our technology and our protocols, and all I can say is it works. You follow the protocol, and your problems go away.
So that would be the first step, is to
that's the biggie. That's where we're evolving into that more and more and more. But on a simple basis is minerals. We all need minerals. Probiotics. Again, like I said before, we have over 400 different strains of probiotics in our products.
Right.
Because they've identified 10,000 strains of organisms that we need to keep ourselves healthy, clean, and balanced. That's like 80% of our immunity are these organisms, microorganisms. And most of them are not in our environment, they're not in our food chain, therefore they're not in us or on us. Mm-hmm. So we're compromised. And they're responsible, the minerals and the microorganisms are responsible to keep our gene expression the way it's supposed to be. Because we live in an age now where we have genetic modification all around us. If it's not in the food, we're being bombarded with chemicals constantly.
Yeah.
And these organisms actually digest and get the chemicals and the heavy metals out of our body. But they can't. This is what I call nature's chelation. Our body used to have the ability in nature to keep the chemicals out and the pesticides and the crap out of us. But we can't. That natural chelating ability is not there anymore because we don't have the mineral base in our bodies and we don't have the microorganism population. So we don't have the ability to chelate. And by putting the minerals and the microorganisms back, the heavy metals go away, the petrochemicals go away, the diseases go away, the digestion then starts to increase, our overall core health begins to increase. Therefore, we are more of us in the sustainable place. That's the basis of everything that we do here with the Body Electrician Clinic.
Now, when you're saying minerals, are you talking about mineral supplements that you put in water, or just minerals, food that are rich in minerals?
Oh, well, I'm talking about mineral supplementation that we use.
Okay.
I've looked at so many different things. You've got ground up rocks, which technically are minerals. You actually have metals that you can consider minerals, like platinum, titanium, stuff like that. Right. Those are in the metal aspect. But then there's a whole group that's called colloidal minerals, which is there's a few deposits in this country found yet where it's like ancient, decomposed, pre-digested plant and animal material that they've already been processed through a bacteria and animals and plants, and then it's in a deposit that's called humic shale.
Oh.
And we get the humic shale, and then we extract the minerals with a steam process. And so you have the liquid form, as well as we have a process where we encapsulate in capsules the dry form. And it has over 78 different minerals. And science today has said, well, this is like 2007 information, we need a minimum of 60 different minerals in our diet daily to be adequately healthy. And the best organic food you can buy has about 18 to 20 minerals in it.
Right.
So you cannot just sustain on food. You have to supplement if you want to get any kind of into a health state at all. You have to supplement minerals.
Now, I'm wondering, and this takes me to my next question, is, we talk, so many of us involved in the alternative health paradigm, for lack of a better term, we're very concerned about fluoride. And a lot of us are we're being advised to either get reverse osmosis systems or to use distilled water with mineral supplements. Or do these supplements, would they be digestible if we were to add them to distilled water?
Well, yes, but see here, this is a whole other topic, the water thing. Distilled water, I mean, you can do a really simple, to tell you how harmful distilled water is to your body if you're just going to consume it. Even if you feed two plants the distilled water and see which one dies first.
Right.
You feed distilled water to one and regular water to another one. It's great for your radiator in your car, but it's not good for human bodies. And if you're going to put stuff in there, actually, mineral salts, like we import salt from El Salvador because it has virtually no industrial heavy metals in it. A lot of the salts around on the planet now have a lot of metal in it because of the acid rain and so forth. And we add that. And then there's a couple of products out there. One is called Cell Food and the other one is called Oxylift. They have actually enzyme and mineral combinations in them that break down the molecular bonding, so it actually hydrates you better. So if you're going to drink the distilled water or the reverse osmosis water, you really got to put the salts, the mineral salts in, and use this other product, if it is Cell Food or the Oxylift, so it'll actually hydrate you better. Because for most part, I see dehydration, and we're picking it up with the scanner. Dehydration is rampant, and people are using all these different supplements, but their water, even in their water, and if you have to add something to the water if you're doing distilled or the reverse osmosis, because it will not hydrate you.
Oh, really?
Unless you put something in it, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's very good. That's very, very good to know, because I'm sure many people that are using reverse osmosis aren't thinking about adding something to it to help us hydrate. I find that, this is a very big issue for many of us, the fluoride in the water and what it does to our bodies. I'm assuming that the fluoride really doesn't, besides messing up our pineal gland and perhaps having an effect on our teeth or our bones or anything like that, I would think that it makes it difficult for us to digest our nutrients as well.
Sure, it harms our whole system, especially our nerves, our neurological function. It's really hard on the computation ability of your brain, because it disrupts your neurotransmitters. That means the communication that happens between the nerves, it disrupts that, and it causes you to have the inability to think.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know, from what I understand, many of the modern day antidepressants are a form of fluoride as well, or have fluorine or something in them, from what I've read. And I can see where that would make you numb and not feel anything.
Right. It also, there's other things. I mean, there's more intrusive things than fluoride now in the water, and there's different ammoniums, and there's other chemicals that they're putting in the water because this fluoride thing is becoming such a big thing. So now they're putting other things into the water to compensate for the fluoride. It's worse than the fluoride.
Right. Exactly. And, depending on where you are, you can also have certain metals and whatnot that could be affecting your water system. I know here in the Roanoke Valley, we have a very high content of copper. And I'm not sure how good that can be for your body in high doses.
Well, see, here again, if you had the mineral base in your body and in your food chain, and if you had the microorganism population in your gut, it would not be an issue. Because those are just naturally in the water supply. The iron or the lime scale, these other things, they don't even become a problem if you have a balanced system. Your body's able to handle the natural assault. It's this unnatural assault, the chemicals, the pesticides, the GMOs that are causing the problems.
Right. We have a question here from one of our listeners. They're interested in knowing, is freezer burn toxic?
It is what?
Freezer burn?
Freezer burn.
I guess when the food gets that freezer burn on it where it crystallizes.
Toxic. Never heard of that. That would be toxic. It usually tastes funny and doesn't cook the best.
Yeah, right.
Toxic? No. Actually, there was a study on the other end of that spectrum. There was a study not too long ago that was done that by overcooking your food actually causes it to be carcinogenic. That means cancerous. By overcooking your food. Well-done food actually is carcinogenic.
I read something about that recently, especially when it came to like grilling. When you get that blackened, that blackened stuff was actually carcinogenic.
Yeah, but it tastes good, doesn't it? Though I mean,
it's sort of that smoky flavor.
Yeah, right.
And unfortunately, we're and that's one thing, and this is actually a really good way to wrap up. We got about 5 more minutes left, or 4 more minutes. Is the concept of if it tastes good, it has to be bad for you. What is your idea on that?
Well, I don't believe that.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, my partner makes things taste so good. She's a magician in the kitchen, I'm telling you, and I tell you, it's good for you. So, and it tastes great. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do know there's a lot of things that are good for you, like some herbs that are very bitter. And when the tinctures taste horrible, but yet they're extremely beneficial for you.
Yeah, right. And one last question. I hope we have enough time to cover. I recently was turned on to those liquid aminos. Now, from what I understand, it's basically just a form of soy sauce. What is your thought on that? I think it's called Bragg's liquid amino spray.
Right. Well, see that we use that. You see.
Oh, okay.
And it's a digested product that is beneficial to us. That's one of the few products that has originated with a soy in the making of it. There's no soy in it. It's a digested, fermented product that actually is good for you.
So it's fermented. I wondered why it tasted so differently.
Yeah. It's we use it too periodically. It's actually pretty good for you.
So that I can continue using that then.
Don't quit that.
Yeah, I've been using it in my eggs in the morning, and I instead of salt, I just spray a little bit of that when I scramble it. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, you can use that to marinate your salads and your other meat products and eggs. Oh, I love it on eggs too. It just adds a really nice tang to the meal.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it's very expensive. And for those of us that don't know the benefits of amino acids, what are we doing when we're adding aminos to our food?
Or adding life, because in 8th grade I learned that what are we made of? We're made of minerals and amino acids. That's it. And if you need a good supply of amino acids and minerals in order to make new cells. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can't make good cells. Same with hormones. Hormones require amino acids and minerals. You can't make them unless you have them.
Excellent. Well, to end on a positive note about life, everybody look into amino acids and adding them into your diet. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wil. We really appreciate it, and I'm really, really grateful that you were able to spend the time with us this afternoon.
Thanks for asking me to come on. Maybe we can do this again. I thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, me too. And for everybody, you can learn more about Dr. Wil Spencer at bodyelectrician.com. And don't forget his radio show tomorrow from 2 to 4 right here on Revolution Radio.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.